On Jan 7th, Elon Musk sent out a two-word tweet. The tweet came days after Facebook-owned WhatsApp introduced a new privacy policy which has triggered large-scale migration away from WhatsApp. Millions of people all over the world have downloaded Signal and Telegram, the two apps which are being hailed as alternatives to WhatsApp with better privacy features. You probably know by now the differences between these apps, and you also perhaps vaguely understand WhatsApp's clarifications. But what are the implications of your personal data being collected by big tech companies? And why now?
So your conversations with our personal conversations, your conversations with your mother or any personal conversations, nothing, at least officially, nothing changes, right? They continue to remain fully encrypted. WhatsApp issued a clarification saying that personal conversations, whatever protections used to exist, continue to exist. What changes is that often WhatsApp gives an option of a business account. So various businesses, they engage on WhatsApp. And what happens is that when you engage with a business, so messages that you send to the business, that may be shared with Facebook. That might result in Facebook, for example, targeting you with ads based on the information that you send to the business. So that is what changes.
So only the conversations we have with any businesses may be shared with Facebook. But that's not the full story.
Now, I would clarify again that this is a deflection because end-to-end encryption is not an issue at all. Nobody, even now with this new policy, is going to be able to read the content of the message. It is about other information which your use of WhatsApp is able to share with Facebook and other group of companies, make it possible for businesses to deal with you on WhatsApp.
This controversy is deeply rooted in the manner in which Facebook does not keep its commitments. When WhatsApp was acquired by Facebook in 2014, a messaging app known for its privacy feature, its erstwhile founders were clear that the data would not be shared with Facebook. But in 2016, with a new update to its privacy policy, WhatsApp began sharing user information and the metadata with Facebook. But what exactly is a metadata? If the content of your conversation is the data, metadata is the information that is embedded in these conversations. Like which model of the phone you're using, what is your IP address, how is your battery health, which time zone do you live in, etc. These details can in turn contribute in creating a profile of you. More data these companies acquire, the more realistic these profiles become.
And not just advertising. Because everybody comes to say, oh, that's just advertising, so big deal if I get some advertising. We also must understand now we are offered pricing based on our profile. And you want to book an Uber, Uber gives you a very different pricing what it gives me, even if you and I are going to the same place. Because there is enough data about you, your past behavior, there are other various ways of collection of data. And this depends on which business, how much data they collect, what profiles they have, and what information they have.
But then the 2016 update gave you an option of opting out of sharing at least some of this data, giving a 30-day time window. If you did opt out then, Facebook has continued to respect that choice. But if you missed that window, that's too bad, because you no longer have that option with this new update. The new WhatsApp privacy policy throws up larger questions of privacy among the big tech, and not just that, it throws up even larger questions of how far nations will go to protect the privacy of their citizens.
European Union has a very strong law called the GDPR, which takes care of its people, their data and privacy. That is why the citizens right now in European Union are not receiving the same terms and agreements and conditions to agree on as we are receiving.
India currently lacks the equivalent of a data protection law, and the data protection bill has been with the parliamentary committee for almost an year now. If passed, it may very well protect the consumers from companies like Facebook. The company will have to disclose what data it is collecting. But the government agencies are themselves exempt from disclosing what data they collect, citing national security, maintaining public order, etc. as excuses. In other words, the power is transferred from the big tech to Big Brother. This is one of the key differences with the GDPR in Europe, which has safeguards written into it, preventing individual nation states from violating their respective citizens' right to privacy. With scandals like Cambridge Analytica, the public trust over Facebook has been slowly but steadily eroding. It has proved time and again that the company has little regard for the privacy of its users. But haven't we given up our data to Google, Microsoft, Apple and other big companies too? Doesn't the privacy argument come here? How is this any different? This is a particularly difficult one to answer because so much is couched in the legal language that an average user might give up on finding an answer, and companies might never be held accountable for the data they mine.
There is no way to say that Google is not as notorious about several things, but it doesn't have the same kind of usage, and it doesn't have the same kind of audience as perhaps Facebook group of companies does. There are enough problems with Google as well, but as I said earlier, there are some ways to opt out of that still possible.
Facebook, by its very notion of being a social media platform, which has a number of users that basically, engage in something as basic as speech, right? They have, and therefore the kinds of issues that they have to deal with, the policies that they need to actually protect both user privacy and security are fundamentally different from the kind of policies that Microsoft and Google would need, right? Microsoft primarily being an organization that basically sells products, and Google primarily being, of course, a search engine. Of course, they have a number of other businesses. So it's more in terms of the kinds of they're all called big tech, but they operate in very different kinds of domains, and therefore the kinds of protections that are required are very different.
Among the big tech, Apple has been known to put privacy at the front and center of its operation. As seen in 2016 when it refused to provide backdoor entry to the San Bernardino shooters' iPhones. In December 2020, the new iOS 14 update took this a step further. Apple's decision to introduce a new, fairly transparent privacy policy which mandates all application developers to disclose what and how much user data they are tracking on Apple devices has resulted in Google not updating its apps on iOS stores for weeks now. Facebook took out full-page ads on major US newspapers attacking Apple for its stand. Unlike Google and Facebook, whose revenue model depends on building a profile of its users to target ads better, the revenue model of Apple is mainly dependent on the sale of its hardware. This may explain why some big tech companies, more than others, could lead the way in disrupting the user data-driven revenue models.
We are all now aware that there are no free lunches in the world. We know that we are paying in some form or the other. And sometimes it's a black box and we don't even know in what form are we paying. We have also now seen that we can never trust any of these companies, because even in the current policy, Facebook says we have no plans to actually give ads to you right now. But if those plans change, we will just update that policy. But I don't want you to collect any more data than is necessary, which is data minimization. Collect only data which is required, which is what Signal does. Only your phone number, nothing about other than that. So users want simple service, not all these complicated terms and conditions which everybody scrolls and says, yes, I agree.
But what these companies seem to have been doing is slowly taking away our ability to make a choice for ourselves by forcing us to give consent without which the service will be withdrawn. Ultimately, it all comes down to us. Can we imagine giving up on some of the ease that these apps bring to our lives in order to protect our data? Or have we made peace with larger-than-life companies who can set the agenda to our lives? The current WhatsApp privacy issue is not just about one app, but about the relationship between the tech companies and us as users. The decisions we make now, the way we respond to the blatant disregard for our privacy, will chart the future course of these companies and the revenue model they choose to follow. That's all from us. If you like this video, let us know in the comments below. Remember to share and like the video and subscribe to the Deccan Herald handle for more.